So, hoarding disorder itself is a clinical disorder. And to summarize what hoarding disorder is, it is an ongoing difficulty throwing away or parting with possessions because you believe that you need to save them. You may experience distress at the thought of getting rid of the items. You gradually keep or gather a huge number of items regardless of their actual value. Are all narcissists hoarders? No. Are all hoarders narcissists? No. But there is an overlap between the two. There are many, many people with hoarding disorders who are not narcissists at all. So I don't want to stigmatize anybody who is a hoarder or has that disorder. That can exist entirely on its own. What I'm addressing today are narcissists who also happen to be hoarders. If you live with a narcissist who's a hoarder, it can be on a spectrum from mildly annoying to completely unlivable. For example, in my case, I lived with a narcissist who was also a hoarder. I was embarrassed to have anyone over. Like, I would meet someone somewhere. I did not want to have anyone come over. It never felt like a home. We had junk everywhere. His office was a complete disaster area. And the hard part was that if I tried to help in any way, I was rebuffed. And if I tried to get rid of anything, it was like World War III. This is a serious issue because on top of the abuse you're getting from the hoarder, you're also having to live in this complete disarray, which is bad for anybody's sense of self or anybody's comfort level. Nobody wants to live in this type of environment. But then if you try to do something about it, you can't. So you're really stuck. And at least if you're with this person, you can get out of this relationship. There are people who are brought up by hoarders, and that is even worse because especially if you're a kid, you have no choice. So you're living this horrible environment and it is so dysfunctional and so awful, and there can be cases where there's food rotting or there's just dirt everywhere. If there are pets, there could be pet waste everywhere. You could have rats and insects and bugs, and it's not only it's physically unhealthy, obviously it's emotionally unhealthy, it's mentally unhealthy, and embarrassment of having anyone over as well. And there are hoarders that are more secretive about it. So maybe on the outside, if you live in a house, let's say, or an apartment, it looks normal. Then you go inside and it's completely unlivable. The focus on this video is very specifically looking at the two and how they fit together. So I'm not diagnosing anyone with hoarding disorder. It is an actual diagnosis. There are people who specialize in that. It's also the level of distress. The difference that I have seen is if somebody is a hoarder but not a narcissist, they are actually in a lot of distress living like that, and they don't like it, and they want to do something about it, but they feel really helpless. A narcissist, however, will make excuses for it, or they will not be nearly as distressed living that way as the people around them. And so if you are a child of a narcissist who also is a hoarder, you're going to be suffering a lot more than they are. And that is also its own form of abuse because you're already in this abusive situation with this narcissistic parent, and you also have to suffer the physical reality of living in this awfulness. And it is just an untenable situation for anyone, and that in itself can cause a lot of trauma. It's like they're projecting onto you, or sometimes they'll blame you for the hoarding, or they will say, you never help me, you never do anything, or it can even accuse you of being a slob. Or why are so many narcissist hoarders? Well, one of the aspects about it is control. It's this idea that I can control my things. I can control how many things I have, and then the things will never talk back to me. Things won't insult me. Things won't not love me. And then another aspect of it is filling a hole. It's like you're trying to fill something and you can never fill it, and they keep collecting things. A lot of narcissists are collectors or Hoarders are also collectors. And again, there are collectors who are not hoarders. It doesn't infect the rest of their life. The difference with collectors is that the hoarding narcissists use that as an excuse of acquiring more things. They'll say, oh, I'm a collector, but they're collecting everything. They might have a collection of a million different things, and it's not neat and tidy. Like, they could have things all over, like I collect records, and they might have bins and bins of records that are just stacked up, taking up all the space in a room. So they're not really doing anything with those. They're just sitting there. It's disarray. It's chaos. It's physical and mental, emotional, mental chaos, mess, clutter. It permeates all areas of life. And I've talked in early videos about word salad, about how scattered a lot of narcissists can be, and this is part of it. Not every narcissist does this. Some are very neat and clean and tidy, and they can be obsessive about that as well. But I am specifically addressing the narcissists who are hoarders. There are some hoarders who are what we call more neat hoarders, and they will have like things that still have the labels on them, but they're kept in their own room, like an entire room of clothing. So that is another way that they're not always messy per se, but the difference is that they're still taking up space with all these things, and they seem to like these things more. And then what often happens is, as these people get older, it does start to leach into other areas. So they might have things neatly stored, but as they collect more and more and more and more, eventually it takes over. And then suddenly they've got a whole room of Beanie Babies or something. Basically what it does is it impacts your life in a negative way. And so you'll notice, like, I can't use the table, or I can't use this room, I can't sit on this couch. So what happens is your home is no longer a home. Your home feels like a minefield. It feels like an explosion of things. And so in itself, that's very damaging. But then on top of that, it's also all the other abuse that's coming in there, and it all kind of just spirals and builds on itself. And so the comfort level that many narcissists have by being surrounded by things, and narcissists also tend to objectify people. So to them, people are objects. So it makes perfect sense that they prefer actual objects. Objects will not hurt them. Objects will, perceived hurt. Not that we're actually hurting them, but even just by trying to be honest or trying to not cater to them all the time, they see it as being hurt. And so they will rely on things, and they'll keep collecting, they'll keep acquiring. They love to acquire things. Sometimes, too, they'll be obsessive about finding things, like going on eBay or going on collector sites. I must have that one thing. And they'll get really obsessed with acquiring that one thing, like that's going to bring them happiness. Then they get it, and they feel just as empty. It didn't bring them any happiness, so then they're going to go for the next thing. And so it is like a drug. It is a type of addiction. In a way, this hoarding, this acquiring things becomes really compulsive and is another form of addiction. They are addicted to stuff. They are addicted to things. And sometimes, too, they might be a bit of a show-off. They might like to show off their things. They can have the things they want people to see, and maybe they do have something stored in a case that is a pride and joy of theirs, but then underneath is the crazy, is the mess, is the clutter, is the chaos. That's the word salad that I've addressed in other videos. And so if you translate into the stuff, that is also the same. There's no coherency to it. There's no order. Nothing makes sense. You have things and it might make sense to them. Sometimes they might even know where everything is. And it's crazy. You'll walk in there and you just see an explosion of stuff. It makes no sense. But to them, they know exactly where that is. Or the other thing that can happen is they start searching for it, and they get really angry because they can't find the thing they want. And so they project it onto you, and it's your fault they can't find it. Somehow you're supposed to know where their stuff is, even though it's their stuff. They're also very possessive of their stuff. So if you try to mess with any of their stuff, they're going to get so angry. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to hide under this mountain of things. And so that brings me to, what is the solution? The solution is to get the hell out. I wish I had a better option. I really do. But again, if you are with a narcissist, you know already this. You know that you can't be in this situation. So it'll never get better. This is another symptom. And this is a symptom. The hoarding is not a cause. The hoarding is a symptom of the narcissism. So this is one more aspect of their chaotic character, of the way they look at the world, of their complete empty shell underneath themselves that they can't get in touch with or fill in any other way. And a lot of times they'll have other addictions on top of it. If you were in a home like that and you're out, you never have to live like that again. If you're with a narcissist, hopefully you're figuring out a way to detach and to get yourself out. And if you've left them, you don't ever have to be in a hoarding situation again. Just how to cope. The coping is that you really can't. The coping is, if you're with the person and you're sort of 1 foot out the door, but you have to live there right now, you just got to carve out a space for yourself. You have to detach from whatever that mess is, almost dissociate with it a little bit, and just do the best you can with what you have. You can't get rid of their things. It'll just cause a huge, huge storm, and they'll just punish you for it, and it'll just be a really untenable situation. They can even get violent sometimes about it. It's like you got rid of one of their children. Like, that's how they look at their stuff. They're so attached to it. So that's really the only way, is you just have to kind of cope in the moment and then get out. Thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe if you want to see more of this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.